Pathmonk is the AI for website conversions. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in the buying journey separates you from the competition online. Pathmonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by 50% by adding Pathmonk to your website in seconds, letting the artificial intelligence do all the work, and increasing conversions by 50% while you keep doing marketing as usual. Check us out on pathmonk.com. All right, everyone, welcome to today's episode of Pathmonk Presents. Today, we are joined by Alex Atkins, VP of Growth and Operations at Sturdy. Sturdy is a pretty interesting company. Alex, I want to welcome you to the show, but then I'll jump right into what Sturdy is, because I think it's pretty fascinating. Welcome to the show, man.
Sounds
How's it
great.
going?
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, of course. So, in your own words, what's the heart of what Sturdy does, and how would you describe it to someone new?
Sure. Yeah. So the best way to describe it, how I've been describing it recently, is Sturdy is the world's first business intelligence solution powered by your customer conversations. So, what's it about? It's about proactivity. Uh, we feel at Sturdy that today, like incomplete, inaccurate, and overly siloed data forces us to triage symptoms rather than the actual like root causes of revenue impacting issues. And so we believe that to be proactive, one must sort of harness the power of contextual data. And we can talk about contextual data. I love talking about contextual data. And we believe that's sort of like the untapped business advantage. And it's I guess simply put, it's not about the what, but it's understanding the why, sort of like a comprehensive understanding of the additional context. And only when you can answer the why, I mean, you can answer questions like, why are our customers frustrated? Why are our teammates taking too long to respond to customers? And, what is confusing about our product, but like, why are the people that are using our product confused? And is there anything specific within the launch that was confusing to them? Right. So the why is an incredibly important question to ask. It's a very powerful question to answer in real time, which has traditionally not been really the case. You can't really do that. Um, but at its heart, Sturdy, it's pretty interesting. So basically, Sturdy ingests all of the structured and unstructured conversations, right, that are happening between you and your customers.
Hmm.
And so think of unstructured data, and we call it unstructured data, but think of it as like, all of the emails, tickets, chats, all of the calls that have been transcribed, right? Sturdy ingests all this information, it anonymizes it, redacts all PII so that our models are trained in a fully anonymized form, right? So we can remain SOC 2 compliant, GDPR, other data protection
Of
regulations.
course.
Very important for us, very important for our customers, right? And then we have what's called entity detection. And this actually means that we're taking all that unstructured gobbledygook, right? The thousands of conversations that are happening between you and your customers. And we're marrying that data to a source, like a source of record, like a Salesforce, like a CRM, right?
Hmm.
And now you can ask Sturdy questions like, show me um, my top 100 enterprise customers with renewal risks in the next 30 days. And then please summarize why these customers are renewal risks, right? Again, going back to the why, the contextual
Yeah.
data, very, very important, right? Cool. We know that these, 20 customers over 100 million ARR have renewal risks, but why, right? Why? And then can we summarize that, please? Thank you very much. So it's conversational search, right? AI search in a sense, but also sort of an ability to summarize and get you the information, right? The identifying piece is really important so you can proact, right? And that's kind of going back to the proactivity. So just to make sure I kind of cover the bases on like, how do we know there are renewal risks? And this is obviously a big question a lot of people want to know about.
Hmm.
So once we ingest all that data, right, those thousands of conversations, I mean, think about this. Each individual that's a customer facing, teammate has an email, typically gets on calls and they have calls transcribed. We're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of silos within each individual on the team, because each of those emails are probably read once and then just left, right? And this is
Hmm.
tons of valuable information that Sturdy can ingest. So all of those data silos just kind of completely removed. Also, like individual silos completely removed. We collect that data, we normalize it, we run through our inference engine, right? So this is our 30 out of the box um, business language models, right? And so to be very clear, these 30 plus vector-based business language models are not trained on like New York Times or the social media chat. This is business conversations happening back and forth between you and your customers, right? And other companies and their customers, training and getting even more intelligent over time. And so these vector-based language models, just to be very clear, they're not like traditional search models, right? Like you would think of as a search model in the sense that they're not looking for exact keyword matches or phrase matches. This is vector contextual semantic like AI
Mm.
search, which represents data points as vectors. So it's a really cool process that we're able to bring these specific terms and these specific phrases and match them within a with semantic similarities. So if somebody's talking about renewals specifically, old search would be able to detect, oh, they mentioned renewals, that keyword. But what we're talking about is if somebody's mentioning something like inferring renewals, Sturdy will pick up
Right.
on the language, right? And then pull that in. And then alert the teammate that needs to know now so that they can proactively take action to retain that customer, right? So proactively getting in front of these core issues. Um, and that's Sturdy in a nutshell, right? So it's the ingestion, it's the intelligence, right, and identifying root causes, and then it's the action. It's ensuring that people that need to know now get that update immediately, right, so they can go ahead and take the best action. So that's Sturdy in a nutshell.
Right. Well, I'm so glad I said it was interesting because then you actually proved me right. So thanks for that.
I'm
Uh,
glad.
but
I'm glad I proved you right.
no, it's quite complex system, but it's simple in a way that. So my background is in UX design, right? So when you say the why and the what, and trying, merge them together, understanding the why behind the what, it speaks to me to so on so many different levels. And I don't know
Great.
if there's a use case for it, right? But maybe
There
a
is. Let's talk
designer.
about that.
There you go,
There is.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
maybe a
yeah.
designer can go in and say, look, I want to understand the why, because obviously that's so important for a designer to understand, to
Sure.
ideate and prototype and test solutions, to understand the why, the qualitative behind, what's the data saying, right?
Yep.
So
Qualitative behind the
that,
quantitative. Absolutely. Yep.
exactly.
Nailed it.
So well, then you just said, is there a use case for, because I'm sure in terms of the industries that can adopt this, it's just limitless, really.
It
But
is. It is.
is there a
Yeah. That's a
specific
good point.
ICP that you guys are targeting or a vertical, anything like that?
Yeah. So, we haven't been around for terribly long. So about several years since Sturdy was built and trained on these specific out of the box models. And of course, we've developed more and more models as we've gone along because we found that the use cases for specific models really work for, to your point, specific industries and verticals. So kind of talk about that for a second. We found that B2B tech and services companies, again, B2B tech and services companies that are interested in boosting their NRR, proactively. Um, those are the folks that are investing in Sturdy right now. And I would also say that services companies and businesses, like any kind of services, but like, marketing, advertising, anything like that, um, are especially in the dark because unlike tech and SaaS companies, they don't have a platform usually. They don't have usage data, engagement data, or like telemetry data.
Yeah.
Um, so they're really in the dark, and many of these businesses are also sort of operating on an MRR, right? So like you sign up with like a flexible contract, you get this advertising agency. It's 3 months required, and then after 3 months, it's month to month, which typically it means there's a pretty high propensity for churn for these businesses.
Mhm.
So with Sturdy, they can ingest every single customer conversation and they identify those risks and opportunities as we talked about that. They proact on those and significantly boost customer retention. So that's a good use case, I think, in this sense. And this is a case study, so I can't talk about this one, but like Hawk Media, for example, one of the, if not the most successful performance marketing agencies in the entire United States, increased their month over month retention by 30% in just 6 weeks. So we're not talking about like an incremental +1 or +2%, it's a
Yeah.
massive change because you're no longer reactive. You are identifying things far ahead of time so that you can go ahead and tackle those issues and ensure that you retain those customers, especially if they're, top 100 customers. If they're higher ARR customers, again, you can identify and break down the different customer types, whether they're onboarding, right? It's incredibly important. If you have customers that are confused by your product and have unhappy sentiment, that are in the onboarding phase, which of course you can pull in by marrying up that source of record like Salesforce with sturdy data. It's incredibly important to get in front of those, right? Because you know that those are new and their first experience is incredibly important, especially if it's a month-to-month contract, right?
Right.
So I'd say those are the big ones for us right now where we've seen the most success. I will say one last one that just came to mind because this one's really cool. And I think this also speaks to the fact that like you listen to your customers, which is what we love to do. They'll tell you about some use cases and applications. And one of our existing private equity customers actually told us a pretty cool story about how they've been enabled by Sturdy to enhance their traditional due diligence by integrating, customer and operational data from Sturdy. So they can go beyond like the traditional financial, statements to really understand the health of their target base, their customer base that they're now, acquiring, as well as operational efficiencies, product performance, so on and so forth. And I think that's insane because these due diligence processes used to take weeks to comb
Right.
through all the different customers. How healthy are they? What can we project in terms of customer acquisition and retention? Now that's done in seconds with Sturdy. So it's like it's an incredible application. I thought that was really cool. So private equity, yeah, that's our new ICP, I guess.
That's a good one. And
It's
just
interesting. It's an interesting
you guys
application. Yeah.
kicked the door in, right? And just said,
Right.
okay, you take your weeks. All right, hold my beer, right?
Let's figure out how to make it seconds. Hold my beer. We got plenty of time to have fun. So it is wild. And again, I think this goes back to we're not going to think of all the use cases. But when you get this into the hands of some people, creatives, and then they start coming up with some new use cases, I love it. I love to hear that feedback on how people have used Sturdy in a way that I could not have imagined, and how that's providing, tons of value, right, to them and their team. So it's pretty
I'm
cool.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds cool, and I'm sure that generates a lot of word of mouth, right? And that might be one of the ways that you guys attract new clients
Sure.
and new leads.
Yep.
Are there any other ways that are working well for you at the moment in terms of people finding out about you, getting in touch with you, or
Yeah.
yeah, just
We could talk about
basically being
this
interested?
one. We could talk about this one for a while. It's and to your point, just to go to the word of mouth. I think around the last 4 years since we kind of got things kicked off, word of mouth is so important for us. Referrals, right? And as we've continued to grow, I will note that like our existing and develop product market fit, within existing customers, they refer us to their networks, and that's again word of mouth referral.
Yeah.
So that's been, I'd say, one of the biggest drivers for us over the last 4 years. I'd say funny enough, over the last year, we've tested out something different that we didn't do, I'd say 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I'll kind of go with this past year and then we'll work backwards, talk about some things that have worked and not worked. We went all in on outbound this past year. And it's played a very significant role in generating new qualified opportunities and customers. Kind of going back to, I guess a strategy that as a marketer wasn't the first thing that came to mind for me. But hitting the road, running, sprinting on the outbound, testing, operationalizing that process, and now getting it to a point where we're generating a high volume of quality opportunities. So that's been a huge channel for us. I will say, interestingly enough, again, as a growth marketer, some of the first things that I went to, organic performance marketing, things like that. We didn't see a ton of success. We struggled with performance marketing actually for quite a while. And it's an expensive test, right? I mean, you're spending quite a bit of change on campaigns on different platforms. We tried different channels, tried different platforms, tried different creatives, different campaign types. Just couldn't generate any meaningful results. And my hypothesis on this for a long time, and I do believe this to be true. And of course, we test these things out. It was directly tied to our messaging, right? And I can talk about messaging with you all day, right? So I feel like messaging is so important. The clarity of the message and how it resonates with the ICP. And so because we were spending all this money testing messages that just were not resonating, right? So that was really tough. And we've recently by the way, like underdone like a huge overhaul in terms of our messaging with a lot of user tests, messaging tests. You have platforms like Winter. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. We talked about tech stack a little bit earlier. And a group called Fletch, who actually helped us with our messaging and rewriting our homepage. Incredibly helpful, right? Because we just weren't sure. We weren't sure what that message needed to be. And we had to kind of step away a little outside of our little insular box to kind of see what others thought of us and how others were searching for us and how they were finding us. I guess that takes us kind of to organic and search, because we actually have within the last month just got a new customer through organic search. And I love that.
Okay.
It's great. It's great to see. It's
It's a
low
different
volume for
feeling,
us.
right?
Dude, it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. It's a high intent term, informational term that they came through, right? And they converted, right? Quickly, right? Which is great. They had a concern, they had a problem, they searched for it, they found us, and we moved through the process very quickly. So it was great.
Right.
And it's definitely something I want to reinvest in. Organic, that is. But we have a smaller team right now, which is, I think, great in some ways. Our competitive advantage is speed. We can move quickly, and we can act quickly. We can test quickly. But I'd say there's a lot of opportunity to go back to performance and now really spend with our new messaging and to double down in organic and content so that we can drive some more of those high intent search, opportunities.
Right. Well, that's a good mindset, really, because it's not like you throw your hands up in the air just saying, performance marketing, it doesn't work, blah blah blah. Just more like, okay, this doesn't work. Let us regroup 1 second. Let us strategize a little bit. And you started working with different tools, different companies, right? You started working on your messaging. Now that hits. Okay, let's see. Now let's crank up our paid for a second and see how that messaging actually goes out there. Right. And I think that's the approach, the way to go. So I'm really glad that you guys are going down this route. So you mentioned the messaging resonates on something like the homepage, right? For example.
Yeah.
How does that work? So I guess in a way, I would like to find out what's the role of the website right now when it comes to your client acquisition, and your strategy overall.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly important, and it's sort of it is sort of the storefront, right? On a busy street, you see Sturdy as you're walking by. What do you see? Like, what do you glean from that 15 seconds as you walk by that big window? It's incredibly important. I'm going to throw this kind of goes back to my days at CXL, which I'm sure I can get back into CXL a little bit later on in terms of what I learned my time there working with Pep Laya, who's kind of experimentation guru. And one thing that really stuck with me and always stuck with me was that like we've built our current website and optimize it to boost clarity above all else, that clarity scale. And I think in terms of the hierarchy of what you want in that website on that homepage above the fold specifically is you want that clarity. And then after clarity, you have things like, like relevance and like value, differentiation, all which are incredibly important. And I think differentiation, especially, right? Especially when it comes to B2B, right? Because it's kind of like what Pep would say is the sea of sameness. It's a very sort of vanilla, safe space when it comes to marketing, right? And being able to step outside that and just kind of be a little bit aggressive, try something new, dare to be different. It's so easy to say. It's really difficult to do, right? And remain true to brand, obviously, depending on whatever your brand is. But to your point, to answer that question, the website aims to be a very clear, to the point description of what Sturdy does and the use cases as quickly as possible, right? Nobody's going to be, I don't know the recent stats, but nobody's going to be scrolling down to the footer of our homepage, right? How can I get the most clear message in the H1, H2? How can I demonstrate some really great use cases? How can I get some clarity around what it is and what we're going to do for you within seconds? That's pretty difficult to do, and I'd say that's probably been our biggest weakness today too. um, until we revamped the website and the messaging. That was probably our biggest weakness was not being able to um, clearly explain what we did. And also, I will say this: it's difficult to explain what we do, right? I mean, you had me start this thing off with an explanation. I don't know how long that took. That could have been 10 minutes. That could have been 5 minutes. I have no idea. It's difficult to explain. And people don't need to know all that information up front. They don't need to know how it works, right? Like what's under the hood. They just need to know, how is this going to apply to me? What's the use cases? How is this going to impact my role? Or how's this going to help me fix my issue, right? And that's typically why people are looking for a solution like
Yeah.
Sturdy. And so yeah, I mean, I will say that I think Sturdy is kind of like an early mover, if not a first mover in this space. And there really is no comparative advertising opportunities. It's not like I would be like, check out the Sturdy, frying pan. Like it's the sleekest, most durable, like coolest frying pan out there. Like it's way better than Viking frying pan. Like there's no comparative opportunities. Um, so you're explaining something new to an audience who thinks they have a problem that your solution can fix. It's really difficult. It's a fun challenge, but it's definitely difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And that's a good point. Just saying it's quite difficult. It shouldn't be. Like on paper, it's quite difficult to explain how something works. Because you also don't know what the other person is picked, what picks their interest, right? What's the right word? What's the way to put it, right? Because some
Yep.
different people react to different things, right? And I'm sure, you can draw a line there and say, well, the same works for a website, for example, then, the messaging and the specific word or CTA, even getting down to that level,
Sure.
makes a difference, right? And maybe you can
Absolutely.
draw from your experience here at CXL. Um,
Mhm.
and I guess, I would love to find out from you if there are any kind of tips or methods or even tools. I love a good tech stack, right? Even
Hey,
tools
yeah,
that
yeah. You
makes
did mention that.
converting, that makes sending out that messaging easier in a way, or
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I mean, again, I think it comes back to the speed of a small team being able to sort of understand the journey that folks are taking on the site. And so I guess like in terms of tips, tricks, I will go back to the clarity thing, clarity above all else, remove friction, short home pages, clear headlines,
Keep it
test,
simple.
test, yeah, keep it simple. And when it comes to testing, I think something that folks often, forget is, you don't, if you want to go through like traditional experimentation and you don't have the traffic, that's okay. You can still test, right? There's still user testing. There's still other examples on ways to ensure you're consistently improving, and iterating. Ensuring you have the whole story. So not just like traditional analytics tools, but like, behavioral analytics tools, right? Talking about tech stack. I think those things can be extremely helpful. Any kind of tool that you can easily add on to help you glean more insights you didn't previously have access to, big win, right? That's huge for
Right.
someone. That's huge. So again, from all of this, you said this earlier, learn to develop stories. Have the data develop in those stories and then test those hypotheses, right? Um, I think, one other note, and this just came back to me from my days working at CXL, and this kind of goes to a premium price solution, which of course is Sturdy. Um, and so like this is kind of an interesting one because it goes to pricing pages. And I'm sure it's something I'm thinking about constantly. I think I have a pricing page meeting later today, to be honest. Pricing pages are so funny, and there's so much conversation in the marketing community around pricing pages, because premium priced products and services that if you're selling something like that, you need to demonstrate the value of the product or service before providing any information on the pricing itself. And this is something
Right.
that Pep told me I'll never forget, right? Because if you have pricing so easy and transparent, which as a user, of course, I want pricing to be easy and transparent. I want to be able to get onto your site, have a general idea of what you're doing. Maybe I drop off, come back, direct traffic, but I'm looking for your pricing. If you don't have pricing on your page or it's not transparent, I hit on the pricing page, it says talk, schedule a demo. It's frustrating. Probably the next thing I'm going to do is go to Reddit or look up, hey, try to find another source on the
Find a way
price. I
around
don't know
it.
the price. Yes,
Yeah.
of
Yeah. And you'll
course.
find out, right?
Of course, and you find out. I mean, that's the point, right? And so I know I've gone through this a million times, so I get it. But at the same time, the goal is to really provide the value behind the service before you drop that number. because the number can be pretty big. Wow, it's like, oh, $5,000 a month. What does this tool do? Like, what are the use
Yeah.
cases? What is the return on investment for this? That's an insane number for a lot of teams. So to really be able to provide those use cases, um, at least in a way help people understand that value before they get to that pricing page. And I do understand there is so much. I think there needs to be so much more transparency around pricing. And I'm putting
Right.
up my hand as somebody who doesn't have a pricing page right now, but there needs to be so much
Okay.
more transparency around pricing page. And it's a conversation we're having as a company too. But it's really finding that middle ground, right? Like there has to be a balance, right? To demonstrate value, provide pricing, you know, and we're working within consumption stuff too. So it's like you can still have a premium price consumption model. It just gets complicated though. You know what I mean? It gets complicated and even more hard to be transparent. So, anyways, I guess going back to
Right.
what you're asking, pricing pages has been top of mind for me, which is why I keep ranting about it. But yeah, these are just like little tips and tricks that I learned from my days at CXL. I think, in addition to that, just to kind of go back to tech stack, you know, I love having a 360 view, holistic view. Like get a CDP and ensure that you have a pretty solid CRM. I love being able to see 10,000 feet out and then see 1 foot out, right? So that's kind of what I'm getting at when I say like have those behavioral analytic tools, have those little tools in your pocket that you can see the behavior of a specific individual, see what they're going through. And I think that's incredibly important for marketers these days. Now that we have access to it, right? And marketers are becoming more digitally and quant heavy marketers. So, anyways, I think that's a big one.
Indeed, indeed. Well, it's a creative field, but there's a lot of data analysis behind it,
Yep.
and
More than ever before.
absolutely. And the ability to zoom out and then zoom in, I think it's very important. You just mentioned, so that you connect the dots and the story starts making sense, right? So
Absolutely.
100%,
Yep.
100%. Well, speaking of stories, I would love to switch gears just for a second and talk
Sure.
about you, right, as a leader.
Sure.
So what's your daily story like? What's your day to day, and what do you? Because I'm sure obviously BPO growth, you'll oversee many different things related to growth and operations, but
Yeah.
how so you
Yeah.
wear different hats, right? But what's a day to
Yeah,
day
that's, I
like?
mean, you knew what I was gonna say. Yeah, we're different hats. Here's the thing, again, like I've worked at some really large organizations, and I've developed sort of a skill set around managing larger teams. But at the moment, one thing I do love about Sturdy and where we're at right now is that it is a lean, scrappy team. And with that, obviously comes multiple different hats. I'd say from day to day, I spend a lot of my time figuring out over communicating. I work remotely. So over communicating with my teammates to really understand where I can remove bottlenecks, where I can provide the most value, in terms of the bandwidth that I have day to day. And it does
Yeah.
change every day, right? So you have to remain flexible. And I kind of love that. That actually that works well for me. And so, there's a lot of projections and budgeting and that I'm working on a daily basis. I'm working on a lot of creative. I'm working on the site quite a bit, working on copy. Um, I'm working to build decks, right? So it kind of changes day to day, which I love. But again, I think one big thing and one big learning here is that I communicate, and this has been something that I've done traditionally too. Sometimes over communicate on anything and everything I'm working on with anybody and everybody on the team that I can best support or help or needs help from me, so that they know they're in the know on what I'm doing. They know how it's going to apply to what they're working on. And if they have anything that they need help on, if there's anything that's sort of time sensitive, I can easily just switch directions and work on it, right? So lean, fast, agile, and flexible. These are things that I think of pretty much every day to allow me
Okay.
to move. And I will make one more note on this too. This is something that I discuss a lot, like when it comes to podcasting, when it comes to just chatting with sort of new marketers. Are you familiar with sort of the T shape when it comes to sort of a marketing skill set? So like really
Was it?
understanding.
Yeah, was it Google that kind of coined it, right? Yeah, yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
think it was Google that coined it, but it's this large, broad understanding of a bunch of different marketing disciplines, right? A good foundation within a lot of these, whether it's conversion rate optimization and experimentation, whether it's copywriting, whether it's digital performance, SEO, doesn't matter. Having a
Hmm.
pretty good foundational understanding, being a bit of a generalist, right? And so that
Yeah.
allows me to access and tap into a bunch of different skill sets. I can go work on the website, I can go check out our organic traffic, I can go make some updates specific copy, write a blog post, create a video, whatever it may be. So it's a good
Yeah.
sort of, and then having that deep understanding within a couple different sort of facets of digital marketing, like for example, experimentation or analytics or copywriting, like things that I'm really really good at. And so I think that learning all of these different disciplines and kind of getting a good foundational knowledge has allowed me to kind of be flexible. Going back to that, also, I'd say one of these is management, managing down, managing up. That's another really important piece over communicating, really important piece of marketing in my
Mm.
day to day. So I'd say that's a little bit more about what I'm doing these days. And I love it. It's fun. It keeps things interesting, you know?
Things are, as you said, things are moving fast, right? And so it's exciting when it's obviously you have to
Exciting.
have that breadth of knowledge and that kind of vertical part of the T where you can zoom in, right?
Yep.
To be able to
Yep.
kind of handle it all. But when you do, then things click, right? And it feels like it's a game more than anything, right?
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
so speaking of keeping things fast and quick, I wanted to jump into as to close things out, to
Yeah.
jump into our rapid fire questions. So
Sure.
the only rule we have here is short and crisp answers needed,
I'll do my
and
best.
that's all we did. All right, sweet. So what's the last book you've read?
Woo. All right. Last book I read, as pertains to sort of to business, I would say it was Human to Human. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. It's Brian Kramer book. Pretty
Okay,
decent, pretty decent book. I'll keep it short. Decent book, Human to Human. That was the
sweet.
last one.
All
Yeah.
right. So if there was one task, one repetitive task that you do on a daily basis that you could automate, what would it be?
That's a tough one. How do I pull back in from the stuff that I was talking about? We were talking about UX and product marketing probably. I'd love to automate product marketing, and this is maybe just like also a little like soft plug for Sturdy as well. But like, you know, um, I'd say product marketing because traditionally, product marketing teams have like had to rely on unreliable scant sort of data resources and sources and surveys. And now with Sturdy, you can basically have all this customer information and feedback on all things product marketing in seconds. So that'd be it.
Okay.
That'd be
Okay.
boundary removed is product marketing made automatic.
All
So
right. That's a good one.
yeah.
Okay, so last one. If there's one quality that you can go back to your younger self, right? Starting out, Alex starting out, that you could just give yourself right there and then as a marketer, as a leader today, what would it be?
Um, First thing that comes to mind is that we were just talking about the T shape, is I focused far too much as a young marketer on trying to be a specialist
Hmm.
in one field and or one discipline because I felt like if I wasn't a specialist then I wasn't going to be going down the right path. I wouldn't have the right journey in my career. But I'm so excited to be able to now to know that like if you are able to kind of bounce around and try a few different things out, you're just building out that foundational level of your T, right? So I just tell myself to relax and enjoy the journey a little bit more because the more I learn about
Mm,
this umbrella that falls under the digital marketing, the whole spectrum, right? Like the more I learn about everything, the more dangerous I'm going to be in my day to day.
right. Well, let's close off with some wisdom. That's I love it.
I
I love it.
try, we try, man, we try. Still somewhat
That's
early over
good.
here. The wisdom's not coming too easy, but a little coffee helps. So yeah, I appreciate that. We do what we do.
That's good. Alex, want to thank you for being on the show with us today. It's a really interesting conversation for myself, and I hope it was the same for our audience. I'm sure it was. I just want to give you the last word. So if someone forgets everything about the interview today, Alex, what's the one thing that they should remember about what you guys are doing at 30?
Sure. If you are interested or keen on proactively identifying and acting on churn, if you're really keen on improving your NRR in 2025, check out Sturdy. It's the best way to ingest, identify through an intelligence layer, and then act on any of those root risks or opportunities.
Awesome. All right, then go check them out.
Yeah,
Thank you.
check
Thanks
us
for being
out.
on the show, Alex. All right.
Appreciate you so much. Thanks, man.
You too. Bye bye.